There was a knock on the throne room doors. Twilight turned her head from her vigil at the window. "Enter." The doors opened just enough to permit a lone unicorn guard. His face was covered in blood. He favored one of his hind legs. I was told to deliver this, your majesty." Twilight's chest constricted, for she knew it could only mean one thing. She stepped forward with a heavy heart, and using her magic, lifted the object from the guard's hoof. It was an orange feather. She fell to her haunches, a small cry escaping her throat. Tears swelled from her eyes as she took the feather and held it close to her chest. "That fool. I told him not to go there." The guard removed his helmet and bowed his head. "I am sorry, my princess. We tried to protect him." Twilight made no attempt to wipe the tears from her cheeks. She looked up at the guard and recognized his terrible condition. "You should go. All the guards should go. I don't want any pony else to die for me." He looked up at her, lips set in a grim frown. "We cannot do that. We must protect the princess." Her broken heart pounding, Twilight raised the feather with her magic and stood tall over the guard. "This is an order from your princess. Withdraw." The guard stared at her for some time, his expression unreadable. At last he stood and replaced his helmet. "Forgive me, your majesty, but I must refuse. We will remain outside. Please, reconsider your position." They really weren't going to budge, were they? Twilight turned away and held a leg over her eyes, struggling to hold back a sob. No, I will not run from this, nor will I fight my own citizens." The deep silence filled the air, punctuated by distant sounds of clashing weapons and magic. Twilight devoted the time fighting to control herself. But she wasn't doing a very good job of it. After 10 years, it was getting hard to hold in the pain. "Princess!" The guard's hoofsteps resounded in the quiet. "We'll guard the throne room. I apologize that we won't be able to hold him back, but we will hold out as long as we can." The doors closed. Twilight was alone in the massive throne room that she never liked to be in. She wanted to sit in the seat. As far as she was concerned, only one pony was supposed to sit there. That pony was gone, probably forever. Twilight let the feather hover between her eyes, her heart bleeding as she recalled so many happy memories, when all hell broke loose. He was the one who kept her on her hooves. Now he was gone too. So many friends, so many loved ones, and now even her dear husband. With a shaky sigh, Twilight turned and approached one of the massive stained glass windows. Before it stood 5 short cliffs, each with a bright red pillow on top. Each pillow held a key, keys that never got to see their proper use. She eyed each one, hovering the feather over their respective pillows as she considered them. It was so difficult. Every time she examined those keys, she found herself on the verge of tears. Her face was already moist. Her legs shook. Her vision blurred. At last, Twilight set the feather down upon the key, shaped like a lightning bolt. Loyalty. That suited him well, didn't it? She gazed up at the window, choking down a sob and rubbing down the moisture from her eyes. The decorated stained glass window in a beautiful display, set in the angelic poses of what she hoped was eternal peace. I'm sorry." She struggled to get the words out. Words she repeated every day since that terrible battle, but which today felt terribly true.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't maintain harmony without you. I wish you'd come back.
Twilight didn't want to watch the smoke rising over the city, to witness the last of her loyalists being cut down by the overwhelming numbers. There was no point. So she walked between the two pillars, to a large single pillow set in the center of a semicircle, and curled up on top. She rested her head sideways, so she could keep her eyes on the window, on her friends, and try to drown herself in her precious memories. She wanted the warmth of a helping claw, the energy of an unpredictable spell, the smell of an apple pie, to hear sweet laughter, to see glimmer of rare gems, to taste the driving wind, to feel a kind hoof. Yet she would never get those things, never again. She closed her eyes and sobbed. There was nothing else to do. Twilight was roused from her guilt and loss by the sound of fighting. She made no attempt to cover her ears from the noise. This was something Twilight needed to hear. She turned about on her pillow, away from the great window, and lay in wait. Her eyes locked on the door. Her ears perked as she cast a hearing spell. Every shout, each metallic clash, the crackle of magic. She wanted to be aware of it all. Twilight's heart throbbed with each pained cry. She heard the captain of the guard attempt to rally his men, and Twilight's breath cut off at the same time as a shocked gasp. Why didn't they leave? Why did they have to be so loyal? There was only one left. She could hear him standing just outside, shouting his patriotic fervor. Twilight bowed her head at the same time of the bang, the doors shaking from the impact. She could hear his body sliding to the floor, his whispered apology.
I'm sorry, too.
Her shoulders shook.
I'm so sorry.
She let the magic fade and closed her eyes. No attempt was made to create a barrier against the attackers. No spell of invisibility, or prepare the blast of righteous fury. She would face this obscenity. Seconds lingered. Were they preparing themselves? Did they think that they know, after 10 years of pacifism, she would at last try to defend herself? There is no logic at all in their actions. At last, the doors opened. The attackers entered the room in silence, their footsteps slow and cautious. She kept her eyes closed and waited.
There! We finally got you, you witch!
The footsteps stopped. No attack came.
Open your eyes. I want you to see the face of the ponies that finally beat you.
Twilight remained silent and calm.
Good goddesses, look at her. I know, basking in the glory of her twisted deeds.
Fire burned in her mind for the first time in months. Twilight sucked down a slow, shuddering breath and opened her eyes. There were 6 of them. Her eyes roamed their hardened and battle-ready forms. Twilight's anger boiled, but there was also pity for the poor fools. Her words came in a harsh whisper.
You have no idea how much it pains me to lie here every night.
The tall orange Pegasus stepped forward, her eyes fierce as she aimed her spear.
Don't give us that crap. Every pony knows you're proud of what you did.
The white unicorn shared a similar menace.
10 years of fighting. If you really cared, you'd have never taken the throne. Twilight raised her head in a haughty frown. I took nothing. A pale brown Pegasus flapped her wings in agitation. Why are we talking to her? I agree. A silver earth pony let out a low snarl. Kill her before she turns us into a crater. Go at her head on. The tall pink unicorn shook her head. That's probably what she wants. Twilight bared her teeth. I will not fight equestrians. The only one that had not spoken, a massive red stallion, stepped forward. The scar running along his throat clarified his silence, but the ferocity in his eyes spoke volumes. That was when Twilight noticed. She eyed all of them, her heart growing heavy. There was 6 of them. Where is Apple Bloom? The 6 rebels shared angry frowns, save the stallion, whose glare only intensified. It was the orange Pegasus who finally answered. She took your bastard husband with her. It was like a knife twisting in her heart. Twilight let out a small cry and covered her face with a leg. Goddesses, Big Macintosh, I'm sorry. The silver pony let out a small snarl. Don't you dare speak to him! Don't pretend you actually care! Big Mac moved in, baring his teeth and growling. But that fire had returned, this time in full force. Be silent! Buck you! The others cheered the line. Twilight stood, her horns sparking with all the godlike power that had been instilled within her a decade ago. You fools, whatever happened to the harmony of Equestria? You did! The pink unicorn tried to fire a beam against her prison. It frizzled pointlessly. You refused T-Rex's deal. You let your friends die. You became the monster. The others cried their agreement. Twilight's blood boiled, but she remained calm. And what else would you have me do? Surrender the only thing that gave Equestria a chance? Submit myself and every pony in this land to his tyranny? You should have thought of an alternative. The orange Pegasus spear shattered as she smashed it against her prison. My sister's dead. You sacrificed her so you could be a god. We traded one tyrant for another. The words came out as a scream. I am not a tyrant! They all went silent, watching as Twilight seethed. Her shoulders shook, her heart hammered in her chest. She glared at each of them in turn, teeth bared, sparks flying from her horn. The light brown Pegasus sneered. You are sure acting like one. Twilight let out a frustrated shout. Where did you get these insane ideas? Who put them into your heads? I have not once harmed a single pony with my powers. I have raised the sun and moon for a decade. And where are the other princesses? The white unicorn pressed against her prison wall. Why didn't you give them back their powers after killing T-Rex? What did you do to them? Twilight threw up her hooves. I don't know where they are! Silence once again encompassed the room as she fell on her knees. Her anger traded for a sudden and overwhelming sorrow. I don't know where they are. I want them back. I want them back so much. I never wanted to rule Equestria. The silver pony sat, her words bitter.
Enough of this charade. You have us where you want us. Just kill us.
Is that what you think I'm going to do? Twilight looked at each of them in turn. She saw their confidence and felt her anger come boiling back, but this time it was subdued. You're a disgrace. She stood tall and glared. All of you. One big disgrace. She turned to the orange Pegasus. Scootaloo, I remember you when you were so small, and Rainbow Dash decided to take you under her wing. The young Pegasus opened her mouth to speak, but it closed with a click of teeth at a wave of Twilight's wing. Scootaloo glared daggers as she struggled against the spell. You will listen. She cast a glance at the others, ceasing their attempts to interrupt with the same spell. You will all listen. You haven't deposed me yet, and while I am still Princess of Equestria, I will have my say. She turned back to Scootaloo, who peered at her with her lips curled up in a sneer.
You claim to represent loyalty. Is this your definition of loyalty? You betrayed Equestria just to seek your petty revenge. If Rainbow Dash were here, she would be disappointed. Not because you couldn't kill me, but because you tried to. Rainbow was my friend. And she, above all others, would be willing to accept the sacrifice I made.
Scootaloo stared at her, a spark of uncertainty in her eyes. She looked away with a huff and glared at the floor. Twilight turned to the white unicorn.
And you, sweetie, generosity? What have you done in the past 10 years to qualify such distinction? What have you given your fellow ponies other than fury and bitterness and blood? Your sister was a pony of beauty and elegance who loved to bring out the best in others. You shame her with your actions. Rarity was my friend, and she gave her life so that you may live yours.
Anger filled Sweetie Belle's eyes, but there was also tears. She turned her back on Twilight. There was a noticeable sag in her shoulders. Twilight locked eyes with the brown Pegasus.
Zipperwell, where is the kindness you claim to represent? You think you qualify to take Fluttershy's place just because of your affinity for animals? When she sang at you cute Senora, she did it despite her fears because that was the kind pony she was. Where in your actions in the lifetime of devotion she so happily displayed? If she saw you, she would fear you. Fluttershy was my friend, and she would sob if she saw what you've done to the lands she loved.
Zipperwell took a tentative step back, her lips parted in a startled and hurt expression. Twilight's anger was turned upon the silver pony.
And you, Silver Spoon? Laughter? Seriously, you're supposed to be Laughter. Why, because all the other elements have been picked? At least Cheese Sandwich understood the concept. When they told me he died laughing and protecting the foals at the Battle of Trottingham, I believed it. You presumed to just step in and blaspheme their names? Your job should be to spread joy, not death. Pinkie Pie was my friend, and out of all my friends, I think she would be most insulted by your foolish behavior. And Pinkie defined foolish behavior.
Silver Spoon's eyes locked with Twilight's, her teeth barred in a menacing display. Twilight, filled with disgust, moved away from the pony. She brought her attention to the pink, pale unicorn.
Fleur de Lis. You took my mantle, didn't you? Magic. You sought to be the leader, to guide your ponies against me in your righteous crusade. You insult me. I never condoned war. I only sought peace and harmony. And yet, you are destroying everything your claimed element stands for. The element of magic is centered about friendship. Does that concept stir any emotion in that hate-filled mind of yours? I bore the element of magic, and I hold the life, the health, and prosperity of every pony in this kingdom as precious. Yes, even yours.
Fleur leaned back, her eyes shifting in contemplation. At last, Twilight turned to Big Macintosh. She'd skipped him for a reason.
No pony is more disappointing, more blasphemous than you, Big Mac. Applejack was the proudest, most strong-willed, and most dependable pony in all of Equestria. She bore the element of honesty with integrity and confidence. You watched her grow from a foal to a mare. You should know better than I do. If she saw you now, she would be disgusted. Not only you betrayed the good ways of the Apple family, but you dragged your kid's sister into it.
Twilight bowed her head and sat, staring at her trembling hooves.
Apple Bloom is dead now. She's dead. She looked up to her sister, and now she's probably getting the lecture of a lifetime. She could have done so much. She was such a good kid.
She wiped her eyes free of tears. When she looked up, she saw pain and loss in Big Mac's eyes, a pain that warmed her heart.
I accept her death as my responsibility,
Twilight whispered.
just as I accepted those of my dear friends, for whom I still weep every night. Just as I accept the responsibility for every death of every pony who defended or fought against my rule.
Twilight stood and walked to Big Mac. She pressed her hoof against the prison wall. With her magic, she brushed his tears away.
I am sorry. You can't comprehend how sorry I am. I wasn't willing to use my power to hurt equestrian citizens, nor would I let my husband enact the brutal methods he thought would be necessary to put down rebellion. I would not raise my hoof against my own subjects, and as a result, you lost both of your sisters. I couldn't fight you, Big Macintosh, because that would mean turning my back on Applejack's sacrifice. Applejack was my friend, and I will not disgrace her memory.
Big Mac stared at her for several long seconds. Stared as if he'd never seen her before. At last, he choked down a sob and turned away. Twilight walked back to the great stained glass window, gazing up at the images of her dearly departed friends. Their pristine faces brought tears to her eyes and sorrow to her heart. Yet, there was also pride.
I am not a tyrant. I refuse to defend myself against your anger, righteous or not. Hurting a single pony with the vast powers I've been given would dishonor the sacrifice my friends made. They died so Equestria could be free, could live in a state of harmony.
She rubbed her cheeks. Her breath came in weak shudders.
I will not harm or wish to harm upon a single pony. If you want to blaspheme their names and turn your backs on everything they stood for, that is your prerogative.
Twilight turned back to her accusers, her gaze falling upon each one. They all watched and listened, their faces filled with so much contradicting emotions. Anger, uncertainty, loss, determination, pain, and pride.
I don't know where you got this idea that I was glad to sacrifice the ponies who made me what I am. There is no logical explanations for how you all came to the conclusion that I am evil, dictatorial, or corrupt. I am sorry what happened 10 years ago. Maybe if I'd used the power of Celestia, Luna and Cadence gave me to put down the rebellion, then we'd all be a lot happier.
She stepped back atop her pillow.
But I'm not a tyrant. I have remained honest to myself. I have been loyal to the cause my friends stood for. Generous to those who would let me. Kind to those who would oppose me. I've worked hard to spread joy in an increasingly despondent world.
She turned away and lay down, her eyes once more upon the images of her friends.
I am Princess Twilight Sparkle, and I have lived every day since their deaths devoted to spreading the magic of friendship. In this I have failed. So if you really want to punish me...
She released the magic and freed her captives.
Punish me for my failure as the Princess of Friendship.
A long silence filled the throne room. Twilight could hear them shuffling, recognizing their newfound uncertainty. She kept her gaze upon her friends. A distinct calm came over her. No more anguish, no more anger. There were only two ways this morning would end. She would at last be with her friends, or she would continue her tiresome work. Oh, it was morning.
I'm sorry. I almost forgot.
Twilight closed her eyes and focused. Performing the spell she'd grown accustomed to from 10 years of daily practice. The room shined bright as the first light of morning passed through the stained glass window. The brightness rose among the colors gradually, lighting up the serene faces of the martyrs in a brilliant aural fashion. Discord and Spike, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy, Rarity and Pinkie Pie, Applejack. They gazed in the sightless peace upon their friend, their folded hooves almost beckoning. Twilight felt the moisture on her cheeks, the same moisture that came to her every morning and every evening. With pride in her heart, she opened her mouth to speak the line that had become a daily ritual.
Good morning, my friends. Please continue to shine down on Equestria every day. Grant us your blessing and praise, and forgive those that hurt to see the hope you offer. Help them heal, so that they may all know your love.
She bowed her head and closed her eyes. There was nothing left to be said. The quiet lingered. Silver Spoon's voice echoed through the air.
What are we waiting for?
Zipperwill's words came out slowly.
I don't know about these guys.
It's a trick, Fleur hissed. It must be. Sweetie Belle's voice was but a whisper.
She won't defend herself. This isn't how I thought it would go. She could kill us in an instant,
Scootaloo reminded them.
We need to do it now.
Big Macintosh. Fleur's voice was firm.
You lost 2 sisters to this abomination. You deserve to do the deed. Agreed.
Silver Spoon's voice was encouraging.
Do it. End her reign.
His heavy hoofsteps approached, slow and unsteady. Twilight made no motion, spoke no words.
Guys?
Sweetie's voice was almost pleading.
What if we were wrong?
Big Macintosh stopped right behind Twilight. She merely waited.